In this video, we're going to take a look at how the Thai Protestant Church fared during World War II and how they experienced renewal and met the new challenges in the post-war period. On December 8th, 1941, one day after the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor, the Japanese launched a surprise invasion of Thailand. Thailand did not have the power to fight this invasion at all. They knew they couldn't do this, so in short order, the Thais surrendered. When Japan came in and controlled Thailand, the missionaries were either captured or they fled. The missionaries who were in the far north fled over the mountains into Burma, which was controlled by the British at that time. And then they continued on into India to safety. The missionaries in Bangkok and further south, they were arrested together with other foreigners. Initially, they were put under house arrest, but then they were interned in Thammasat University on that campus in Bangkok until they were repatriated to the United States and other countries in 1942. All mission property, including mission schools, mission hospitals, were seized by the Japanese. All church buildings were seized by the Japanese as well. In many cases, these were used as troop barracks or to store supplies. The mission schools, the hospitals, sometimes were turned over to the Thai government to be used as government schools. Before the war, there was intense pressure upon Thai Christians, but worship and Christian activities were still permitted. But during the war, public worship was banned. In Chiang Mai, First Church Chiang Mai was seized by the Japanese, and the top of the bell tower of the church was removed, and there was an anti-aircraft gun installed on the top of the church in order to shoot down Allied aircraft who would come over northern Thailand. In Chiang Rai, the church building there was used for R&R for Japanese soldiers who would drink and gamble in the church sanctuary. Christians were denied jobs. The believers were scattered. They were pressured to deny Christ. None of the Thai Protestants were killed except for one pastor, Pastor Judun Sugungan, who was reportedly killed by machine gun fire from a submarine. The moderator of the Church of Christ of Thailand at the time, under pressure, he denied Christ and he left the church. The Bunmak Gitisan, who was the pastor of Second Church of Bangkok, took the role of moderator of the CCT in this other man's place. Bunmak was his own man. He was determined. He didn't yield to people very easily. In the pre-war period, he would argue with the missionaries, whereas many Thai were very polite and they were very cooperative. They're willing to go along with the missionaries' agenda. Bunmak would, if he said what he thought. At one point, the Japanese entered into a church building in Bangkok, and Bunmak happened to be there. And he said to he yelled at the Japanese soldiers. He says, "Get out! This is God's house!" And the soldiers left.
ออกไปนี่คือพระนิเวศของพระเจ้า
He could have been shot, but they left. So this is the kind of person that Bunmak was. During the war, Bunmak, along with a handful of other Thai Christian leaders, such as Suk Pong Noi, who was the pastor of Trang Church in southern Thailand. They traveled around, they visited Christians at home. Public worship was impossible because of wartime restrictions. But faithful Thai Christian leaders, they traveled and they tried to encourage people from house to house. Some Christians failed. Some Christians distanced themselves from the church under this pressure. But there was many who stood fast. There's a story of the principal of a Christian school in Chiang Rai who was visited by a government official and told that he needed to replace all the Christian teachers with Buddhist teachers. He refused. The government official decided, can we work together on this? Okay, you don't want to fire all your Christian teachers and replace them. Well, just have the teachers say that they're Buddhist. They don't really have to be Buddhist, but if anyone comes to ask, just have them just say that they're Buddhist. This Christian school principal replied, he said, "What good would that do? If I deny my religion, I'll be a person. Won't people judge me to be a person ready to deny my nation as well? No one will ever trust me again." And again, in another deliverance from God, the official just shrugged and left. He left him alone. The school can continue to operate as a Christian school. Many schools could not, but conditions were not the same for every place. It was back then, as it is today, that everything kind of depends upon relationship and the feelings of the local officials with whom you have to deal. When the war ended, persecution ended, but a lot of damage had been done. Um, Persecution during the nationalist period in the 1930s and during the war period, when all churches were shut down and all missionaries had been expelled from the country, um, had devastated the numbers of the Thai Christian Church. Before the war, there was about 9,000 members of the Church of Christ in Thailand, but by the end of the war, there's only 7,000 or 6,000 believers. In the early church period, Tertullian said that the blood of the martyrs is the seed of the church, which in many cases in church history has been true. That under persecution, instead of withering, the church has grown. But in Thailand during World War II, instead of persecution, hardening the church into a diamond that grew and thrived, the church withered. Under pressure, people fell away. Um, in the years after the war, there was evangelism and the growth. Many lapsed believers came back to the church, but damage had been done. Pastor Bunma Kittisai, who was the moderator of the Church of Christ in Thailand in the immediate post-war period, he required all leaders in the post-war period to be people of good faith, good behavior, and have shown themselves faithful during the war. He didn't want any leaders in the CCT who had abandoned the church during the war and were just coming back now. Immediately following the war, the Church of Christ in Thailand had their first General Assembly, which had for in 3 years. They had one assembly during the war somehow, and then immediately after the war, they had their first assembly in 1945, and they had a decision to make. Were they going to invite the missionaries back? In the midst of the war, there was very little, if any, communication between the American Presbyterians had missionaries who had left and the Christians in Thailand. The Thai Christians were completely on their own to manage and to take care of their own church, their own spiritual welfare. There is no money coming in from abroad. The Thai church leaders were completely in charge of their old church, of their own church. But now they had an opportunity to decide whether to invite the missionaries back or not to invite the missionaries back. There was vigorous debate at the General Assembly. In the end, they decided to invite them back. Um, uh, Brosop Chai Ratana, a Thai pastor who was the moderator of the assembly, he agreed that eventually the missionaries shouldn't be invited back, but the time wasn't right. And because he felt so strongly about this, he resigned his position as moderator of the assembly. Nevertheless, the vote passed. The missionaries were invited back. And in February 1946, the first two missionary couples returned. Um, Paul and Gertrude Aiken, and then Edwin and Mabel Court. Paul Aiken had been the director of the mission in the pre-war period, and Dr. Court had headed up the medical services at McCormick Hospital in Chiang Mai. Following them, other missionaries returned, and the missionaries came back and they started to work together with the Thai Christians. They helped the Christians to reclaim church buildings and institutions that had been confiscated during the war. In many cases, the deed to the buildings and the ownership documents have been lost. And in any case, a number of the properties have been in the name of the mission, not in the name of the Thai Christians. So the missionaries were needed to help reclaim those properties for the church. After the war, Thai Christians came back in the church. There was specific campaigns to visit the lapsed Christians, to bring people back. There were specific and targeted re-evangelism efforts to bring back the lapsed. By the 1950s, the church numbers had risen again. Pre-war, there had been 9,000 believers in the Church of Christ in Thailand. That number had plummeted to 6,000 or 7,000 post-war. But by the early 1950s, those numbers had come up to about 10,000. The Reverend Tua Akapin and Pastor Tongkam Pantupong led John Sung-style revival meetings in various parts of the country, trying to revive the church and to bring new people into the church. But while the Thai Christian leaders were focused on spiritual renewal, revival, and evangelism in the style of John Sung, the American Presbyterian Mission, which had come back on the country, was trying to find its bearing in the new post-war situation. When the American Presbyterian Mission, or the APM, first came back in, they established the same mission structures and systems of financial management and administration and managing and budgeting and personnel as they had before the war. But the situation had changed. The Thai Christians had gotten used to leading their own churches. They weren't happy to have the missionaries come back in and assume all the same positions of leadership and administration. The Thai churches wanted more control over their own affairs. They didn't want to cede everything to the missionaries. And the APM, the American Presbyterian Mission, started to realize this. Both in Thailand and other places globally, there was more conversation about the older churches and the younger churches. That the older churches, those in Europe and the United States, and the younger churches in Africa, Asia, Latin America, that there needed to be more parity, more equality, more partnership between them. And as American Presbyterian Mission, we evaluated things. They realized, we need to give more and more control of budget categories and administration and leadership over to the Thai Christians. In the late 1940s, the American Presbyterian Mission in Thailand, they reorganized themselves. They replaced their executive secretary with a field administrator, a position filled by Horace Ryburn for many years. He pushed hard at integration between church and mission, increasingly trying to bring the mission and the missionaries under the authority of the Thai church. And eventually, the American Presbyterian Mission in the 1950s concluded, our job is done. We've established the Thai church. We're ready to dissolve. We're going to hand everything over. So on August 16th, 1957, there was a formal ceremony to dissolve the American Presbyterian Mission in Thailand. And all the missionaries were still in the country. They were rebranded as fraternal workers, and they came under the authority of the Church of Christ in Thailand. The word missionary just felt kind of colonial and obsolete. So even though the missionaries' roles really didn't change that much, they were given a new name. As far as the Thai were concerned, whether they're called missionaries, fraternal workers, it didn't really matter too much. But the missionaries felt better about this new name for themselves that distanced themselves a little bit from colonialism and an older way of thinking about things. But even after the dissolution of the American Presbyterian Mission, the missionaries were still very influential. Most of the budget of the Church of Christ in Thailand still came to the United States. Missionaries still sat on many committees of the Church of Christ in Thailand. Younger leaders in the Church of Christ in Thailand, they began to resent the missionaries. They felt like they were valued for their education and their English ability, but they weren't really valued for their opinions, and they weren't really given responsibility. It took a long time, but it wasn't until really the 1970s, 1980s, that the foreign missionary influence in the Church of Christ in Thailand really faded. And that only happened because as the Presbyterian Church USA, which was the home denomination of the American Presbyterian Mission, as their theology changed and as their numbers shrank, and they allocated less and less budget to missions, that they sent fewer and fewer missionaries to Thailand. And the older missionaries, the old guard, they got older and they retired. At one point, the Church of Christ in Thailand had to decide that with the budget they were being given from the American Presbyterian Church, did they want to dedicate it to programs or to funding continued missionary personnel? And they decided, you know what, let's use it for some programs and some ministry activities. And those missionaries, yeah, we think we can send them home. We don't really want them anymore. So that communication was communicated somewhat discreetly, but the missionaries got the message. And with the reduction of funding, there was a reduction of influence. As long as the funding was coming from the United States, in large part, then there were still strings that could be pulled by the missionaries who were still there. But once the Thai church was supporting itself, then they had much fuller control over their own decisions. Now, during this time period, we witnessed one of the great ironies in Thai church history. At the same time that the American Presbyterian Mission was looking around and deciding our job here is done. We've established the church in Thailand. We don't really have a whole lot of work to do here more. At the same time that the American Presbyterians were closing up shop, there was this huge influx of evangelical churches and parachurches coming into the country. During the Second World War, American service personnel had seen the world. They've been in many different places in the globe, in Asia and Europe. They saw what was out there. They saw pain. They saw suffering. They saw other religions. They saw opportunities. So in the post-war period, there was this huge push of evangelical churches and missions going out to different parts of the globe. So in the decades after World War II, you had dozens of churches and missions coming into the country. Southern Baptist, Overseas Missionary Fellowship, WEC, World Evangelization Crusade. You had Campus Crusade for Christ, FEBC, Far East Broadcasting Corporation, doing radio ministry. You had New Tribes missions, all coming into Thailand. Whereas the American Presbyterian Mission thought, we're done here. Other evangelical missions and churches came in and they said, the fields are ripe for harvest. Thailand has freedom of religion, it's politically stable, 99% of the country does not know Christ. This is huge opportunities. There's plenty of work to do. In our next video, we'll see how these missions came in and learned to work with one another, work with the CCT and relate to them, and we'll also see the newcomer in Thai missions in the post-war period, Pentecostalism.